Us as an organization, it's a dream come true for me, and I want to talk a little bit about how this thing happened, because it's very much a surprise, and it really started by accident. In 2006, I'm in a place. When I met her, she was struggling with drug addiction, with depression. She had known a history of self-injury. She had attempted suicide, and I ended up writing a story about some time that a few friends and I spent with her. And these were her first days sober in a long time. These were her first days coming down and sort of coming back to life. And I had never had conversations like that. I'd never had an encounter or an experience like that. And I felt some things moving around in me that I wanted to try to capture and remember. And I ended up writing this story and gave it this funny title. The title was To Write Love on Our Arms, and wanted to give it a home so that people could find it and share it and maybe interact with it. And in 2006, there was this thing happening on the internet. It was kind of an alternate universe. It was called MySpace. And our timing was amazing, because a couple weeks later everyone was on MySpace, and then a couple years later no one was on MySpace. And so we were there at the right moment. And then we had this idea that maybe we could sell t-shirts to pay for Renee's treatment. And so we designed these really simple shirts. They were black. They just said To Write Love on Our Arms on the outside in white. And then where everything really changed, where everything really kind of took off, was when my first friend wore one of these t-shirts. And so I was standing next to a friend of mine, and he was about to play to a whole bunch of people at a show in South Florida. And I had told my friend John about Renee and about this story and what we were trying to do. And he said, "Man, this is great." We literally opened the first box of those shirts, and John said, "Man, this is great. Would it be okay if I wore this on stage tonight?" And that's happening. And John said, "Man, Ethan's great." Alright, we're doing this. So John wears this shirt in front of 3,000 people at a Switchfoot show in South Florida. And, yeah, South Florida. And we didn't have a table set up. We didn't have any information that we got to give out. It was just John wearing this t-shirt and mentioning it. And I had about a 3-hour drive home that night, and late that night I did a thing that no one does anymore. I checked the MySpace, and that's the final MySpace mention. And I was surprised and honestly kind of blown away, and all of this is leading up to the heart of the matter, which is that first night, and really over the last 6.5 years, we learned that the story we were telling was a story that represents people all across America, all around the world. We heard from people that first night who said, "That story, that's my dad, that's my girlfriend, that's my neighbor, that's a classmate." We heard from people who talked about what it was to live with the pain of losing a loved one to suicide. We heard from people who just admitted that life had been really hard and suicide was something they thought about. Heard from people who talked about what it was to live the struggle every day of depression. Some people used that word, other people didn't use that word. And these messages just kept coming in from, at first, across the country, and then after a couple weeks it was, Australia and England and really odd places like Canada. Anybody here from Canada? Got a good spot. And what we've learned is that so many people in so many places struggle with these things, but they tend to be issues that people don't talk about. Stay with me just another minute. I love you guys. Nothing like a Valentine's way, but maybe. These are things that for some reason we don't talk about. And Aaron was up here earlier, and he talked about the stigma, and we buy into these lies that suggest that we're not allowed to talk about these things. And we've heard people say, "This is part of my story that nobody knows. This is a question I've never asked. This is something I'm embarrassed by." And yet I get to stand up here, and Aaron represents professional help who also see this kind of thing every day. But I get to stand up here on behalf of hundreds and now thousands of people, stories that suggest that it's possible to change. People who are finding sobriety, people who are finding recovery, people who are finding freedom and healing and starting over, even if it's in some small way. We hear from people who are now sitting across from a counselor for the first time. We hear from people who are stepping into treatment, whether it's for the first time or the 6th or 7th time. And it's these stories that just tell us, hey, it's possible. And we're not pretending it's easy or that it's simple, but we're believing, and it's the reason we put this tour on, and it's the reason we're so excited to be here, that it's possible for lives to be saved. It's possible for people to start over. It's possible to let go of things maybe you didn't know if you ever could. And when you walked in here, you got a pamphlet. Is that true? A few of you. If you don't have it, or if you already lost it, there's more at the merch tables. Our team back in Florida did a bunch of homework to find resources here in Boston and around Boston where people could get help. And really our dream for tonight, beyond Anis's lizard joke, is that maybe somebody takes us up on that. And so whether that's tomorrow or a month from now or a year from now, we are literally trying to do more than just give you guys a message. We're trying to say these are the places where you can get help. These are the places where a friend could get help. These are the rooms you can walk into. These are the phone numbers to call. So you'll find counseling options, you'll find treatment options, you'll find crisis intervention options. And I want to leave you just with one idea, or maybe sort of a question. And the question is this: what if your life, what if your story matters as much as every life, every person who's going to stand on this stage and sing their songs tonight? What if everybody in the room, everybody in the balcony is living a story that matters, is living a story that's unique and sacred and priceless? What if nobody can replace you? What if nobody can play your part? What if, if you want to use the story idea, we probably all have parts of that story that we don't like. We probably have parts of that story we wish were different or we could forget or change. And maybe in the same story, somehow we have this stuff that makes us smile. We have memories and relationships and favorite places and dreams for the future. Maybe it's a place you want to live, it's a job you want to do, it's having a family someday. And what we want to suggest is that all of it matters. All of that stuff inside your story, the hard stuff, the dreams, the good stuff, all of it matters. And that you wouldn't take my word for it, you wouldn't take our word for it, but that as you walk out of here and you go back to your life, whether it's here or they go to Canada, that there would be people who remind you with words or just with their presence that your story matters. And if you should ever get to a place of thinking about giving up on that story, that there's people who would show up, they would step up and say, hey, you matter to me, you're not alone in this, I'm going to go with you. And that you would know you don't have to fake it. You don't have to pretend that if you get to a place where you need to ask for help, that it's okay to ask for help. It's just part of being alive on this planet. And so that's what we're believing, that's why we're here tonight. We're really honored to be in Boston with you guys. Does all of that sound okay? Thank you guys, and thank you for being quiet. Now I just get to introduce one of my heroes. He's someone I'm proud to call a friend. He is one of my favorite people, favorite songwriters. When we started dreaming about this tour and who could stand on this stage and who could represent the vision for Heavy and Light, and the idea that life is both, life is really hard, life is really good, there's things worth staying alive for, a night of honesty, a night of questions. This is a guy who is at the top of our list, and I don't know about you, but he's written some of my favorite songs, and you're in for a treat. If you would, help me welcome John Foreman.